Dr. Corsi, it's been sort of an unprecedented news cycle. How are you today?
I'm good. Jason's been fast and furious, as they say. It's been quite a couple of days here with this Ukrainegate story developing. It's pretty amazing, and
Yeah.
I've been on top of it every day, and
hmm
we've got a lot to talk about. A lot to
Yeah.
talk about today.
I think people are going to be very interested, Doctor, to hear your analysis of this whistleblower complaint. I mean, there's so many things that have happened in just a couple days. So it's important, I think, to remind everybody that you and I are here on YouTube and Facebook and Periscope and DLive and all of the wide-reaching platforms that are unfortunately controlled and suppressed by the billionaire tech giants and their advertisers. So we're hopeful that people will join us today at 5 p.m. Eastern on patreon.com/Jerome Corsi, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You're going to be going in depth on all of these issues, but perhaps you could give people just a brief overview of what we'll be talking about at 5.
Absolutely. I'm basically going to decode the complaint, the whistleblower complaint. We'll go through it even line by line, and I'll show you my analysis of why it really has no substance at all in terms of impact. If the Democrats impeach on this, they'll be making a bad mistake. And then we'll also decode I think the centerpiece of this controversy, which is the Steele document of the Ukrainegate. In other words, this telephone conversation in July between President Trump and Ukraine President Zelensky. That one we will go through again, line by line, and I'll show you how I don't think it's possible that there was any crime committed here or any impeachable offense. And I'd like to show you why I think the Ukrainegate, this current crisis, is going to fall apart much quicker than it took Russiagate. But it's got very much the same structure, the same kind of a narrative that the Democrats are trying to produce. It does not have facts behind it. In fact, the facts point exactly to the opposite. It was the Democrats who were the ones obstructing the 2016 election and afterwards by interfering with Ukraine.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, Doctor. I mean, the thing just reeks of being rehashed kind of assault on President Trump. It is really beginning to cause me to wonder what people out there who are watching the news, I mean, are they thinking at all, or are they just programmed by whatever they're told? I mean, on the surface, it seems like we've got the sitting president of the United States calling another foreign leader and asking him to look into credible evidence of really substantial public corruption by the former vice president. Seems like an absolutely appropriate thing for the president to do.
Well, and you'd think the media would be all over the Joe Biden corruption, but just like in Russiagate, that the media's mission and the deep state's mission was to make sure Hillary Clinton did not get prosecuted. Here, the mission of the deep state and all the agencies is to make sure that Joe Biden doesn't get implicated in the crisis. And we started on CorsiNation.com this week. I'm daily doing a decode of the news. We're posting it on CorsiNation.com. Right now, we're also posting them. It's a podcast, and we're doing it on YouTube and Patreon. Patreon is ultimately where we're going to be archiving all of these shows. The ones on Corsi Nation will only have today's show and the previous day's show. And right now, I haven't decided how long to leave them up on YouTube. YouTube keeps, demonetizing everything. YouTube is very difficult to work with these days. But at any rate, I've been doing a lot of posting on Twitter and on Facebook. All my accounts you can find by Jerome Corsi. And the daily podcasts with the news decoding, I think, are going to build, for me again, in Corsi Nation, an audience. We're going to brand the daily shows that I do as a news decode. And then we're going to keep the weekly show with you, Jason, as Dr. Corsi's RX for America.
Great. And Doctor, people who aren't yet following you on Twitter can find you there at Jerome_Corsi. So that's a great way to keep up with the doctor and find him at CorsiNation.com. Everybody's really interested to stay on top of what's happening, Doctor, with you and the various legal actions that you've initiated against Robert Mueller. It really was historic effort on your part. It's amazing, Doctor, how somebody like you gets run through the mill for literally doing nothing. And then we've got Joe Biden, who has obviously abused his position as the vice president, putting his equally incompetent and drug-addled son. I mean, I shouldn't insult the guy. He obviously has a problem, but he was thrown out of the Navy for cocaine use. A car that he rented recently was found to have a crack pipe in it. This is a dangerous person who's driving around smoking crack. He certainly should not be put on the board of directors of a foreign company. And Joe Biden's admitted to applying pressure in exactly the same way they're saying that Donald Trump did. This is the oldest Clinton trick in the book, isn't it, Doctor?
Yeah, the Democrats are blaming Trump for what the Democrats have been doing all through 2016. In our discussion today, I want to show you how Soros and his globalist cabal have been interfering in Ukraine going back to about 2004. And they've never stopped. And the interference of the production of material against Manafort out of Ukraine was again Hillary Clinton and the entire Soros cabal going into Ukraine to get information that would be detrimental to Trump during an election. Exactly what the Democrats are accusing President Trump of doing. The hypocrisy is just amazing in this story. And, you know, I think as we get through this and go through it, you're going to see that the Democrats are risking, I think they've already decided they can't beat President Trump in the election. And so therefore they want to remove him from office by impeachment. I think that I've wondered if there were going to be a conspiracy theory here, I would say maybe Elizabeth Warren was the whistleblower because she certainly severely damaged Joe Biden's campaign.
Yeah.
And the Democrats, as a result, I think this is going to boomerang on the Democrats. And the real story here is that the Biden family corruption, which I hope we get to discuss today, that goes back to 1972 when he first was elected to Congress.
Wow.
There's a whole series of these different incidents that Biden has engaged in. It's not just his son on a board. It also involves his brother James. And Biden is really, I'm beginning to look at him as a grifter. He looks the part, to be a senator or vice president, but he doesn't have the integrity, the morals, or the smarts to really have these offices. And he was picked to, be a senator from Delaware and then to be vice president. He failed in his own attempts to run for president. And I think the guy is basically more than an empty suit because of the corruption. This is, I think, what Americans hate about politics is that, these people with no money come into politics and they end up, the whole family, multimillionaires. The Obamas buy a $15 million house on Martha's Vineyard. I mean, it just goes on and on. And it's disgusting to see our politicians using public office for their gain. I did Silent No More, my book, really detail. I feel especially equipped to cover this story because I firsthand, with 40 hours being interviewed by Mueller, experienced what it's like to be in the crosshairs of these political prosecutors and with a weaponized justice system that hates Christians and conservatives.
Yeah, certainly, Doctor. And I agree. You are in a very unique position to report on this because you've been inside the belly of the beast. And it's just so hypocritical that people doing actual crimes on, to say high levels, it's really an understatement. I mean, this is crime on a level that's never been acknowledged before. It's so vast, it's hard to even accept. It's almost like that J. Edgar Hoover quote that the individual is faced by a conspiracy so vast, he's at a disadvantage because he can't even believe that something like that could exist. I think we've shown this picture on the show before, Dr. Corsi, but who is this third guy with Joe Biden and William Barr back in the 1990s?
It looks like it might be Cheney. Is that a
I
possibility?
don't think so. He looks a little too old for the 90s to be Dick Cheney, and he looks slightly different. But the real concern is that William Barr is obviously old friends with Joe Biden, and I'm just worried that William Barr might be a deep state goaltender in there to continue protecting the criminals from Iran-Contra and the various scandals that have gone on since the George H.W. Bush administration.
Well, we're going to find out. I mean, Barr is going to have a major test, as will John Durham, the U.S. attorney who's working on the criminal aspects of the Russiagate case. When Inspector General Horowitz's next report comes out on the FISA court abuse, I'm expecting that the report is legitimate. It will say that there were illegal activities with regards to using the Steele dossier as a centerpiece to get these FISA court approvals for electronic surveillance and Carter Page. Secondly, if Barr does not follow up with actual prosecutions, and I'm still waiting for McCabe to be indicted.
Yeah.
That was promised, and I haven't seen anything happen.
Right.
The American people are going to become, if Barr wants to restore confidence in the American justice system, he's going to have to hold the deep state criminals, the Department of Justice, the CIA, intelligence agencies, the justice system, the FBI, who tried to destroy Donald Trump. They've got to be brought to justice. And it's going to be the same with this Ukrainegate. We've got to get to the bottom of who this whistleblower really was. And it certainly is a very suspicious, again, looks to me like a politically motivated hit job.
Yeah.
Russiagate failed, so this is attempt number 2. I guess if this one strikes out, which it will, I'm wondering if the Democrats are going to go for a third strike, third and you're out. But they probably have another crisis cooked up if Ukrainegate doesn't work, because it doesn't seem like the Democrats are ever going to stop. Like socialists never stop. And the Democratic Party has gone socialist. I did an ebook and an iTunes or podcast on that. You can find it on Amazon.com, and I show, basically it's I investigate why the Democratic Party has become a communist party, why they've gone communist. And I go back to the 1950s when the Communist Party in the United States decided that the only way to have communism in the United States was to take over the Democratic Party. That was decided in Hawaii in the 1950s with the Communist Party of the United States.
Wow. And that's, of course, where Barack Obama came out of with Frank Marshall Davis.
Yeah, the history of communism and socialism in Hawaii goes back to the 50s. And it was no accident that Obama would be raised in this environment. Frank Marshall Davis as his mentor. I pointed that out when I wrote Abomination in 2008. So I think we've got a long history here, and what we're seeing is that this corruption is, I think, got to come to an end. And the American people, I think, are getting tired of our politics being dominated by a Democratic Party that is just a hate Trump socialist party.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if they don't, the Democrats can't succeed in impeaching Trump, and I think they're going to fail miserably. I think they're going to lose seats in the House and Senate as a result of this charade. And as we're going to decode today when we do the full broadcast on Patreon, that on your channel and on my channel on Patreon, that what we have as evidence, if it's looked at critically and decoded in both this transcript of the telephone call, and that's as good a transcript as you're going to get. And I can assure you, having been through the Mueller experience, and by the way, I think I was the only one to succeed coming out of the Mueller when they threatened to, wanted me to do a plea deal. I told them to take a hike. I have not been indicted, and there's no more investigation going on. Mueller's prosecutors are all now disbanded, fired, done. And
Yeah.
Mueller could not find any collusion.
No.
So,
And along the lines of your earlier question, Doctor, I think there's little doubt that these Trump-hating lefty lunatics aren't going to give up. They're going to keep cooking up new ridiculous schemes despite the huge bill for Robert Mueller's epic, historic nothing burger. They just keep serving them up, one nothing burger after the next, Dr. Corsi.
well,
And you know,
I mean,
yeah, sorry.
well, there's a couple of major conclusions here. Number one, the deep state enemies, the globalists, the Soros crowd, is still in the bureaucracy. We see that with this Ukrainegate. This was a story released from within the White House, and it was released, to what was supposedly going to be a receptive audience with the DNI, which the Director of National Intelligence, which it didn't get anywhere, and it didn't get anywhere with Attorney General Barr. Mm-hmm. But the deep state enemies are still there. And number two, the Democrats and these deep state operatives do not care about facts or truth. These attacks, like Russiagate, are propaganda attacks. They're ideologically driven. You say, well, Donald can always prove that looking at a propaganda attack by, evidence that it's false does not refute it. So you say that Mueller didn't find any Russian collusion. Well, he just didn't look hard enough. We keep looking, we'll find it.
Right.
You can't refute it. It doesn't matter to the Democrats or the left, as it doesn't matter to socialists and communists whether their arguments are true or their ideology, which has never worked. It doesn't matter, because they always say, well, we'll make it work. We'll do it better. These other guys, they were screw-ups, but we'll do it right. Yeah, they won't admit, and propaganda attacks can't be refuted because they become ideology. They become, it's like a mind virus. It's like a computer virus in your mind, and it distorts thinking so that the ideological beliefs in socialism, communism, the Democratic Party, the hating Trump, these become like almost religious beliefs, and they can't be challenged. Because the people who hold them are so rigid and so impervious to critical thinking attacks, showing facts, and documenting that there was no Russian collusion, that it was all a lie, that it was made up by these people. They say, well, they were just trying to protect the Constitution. These Robert Mueller and James Comey and all these other people, McCabe, they excuse everything they do. The number one mission is to excuse Hillary Clinton, to excuse Comey, to excuse the whistleblower, to excuse all these people, because any comment or criticism against Donald Trump ideologically is okay, and any truth-based refutation in support of Donald Trump is dismissed by these fanatics, because that's what they become. Socialist-driven, they end up driving themselves off the cliff.
Yeah.
And I
Doctor,
think that's what's happened.
I hate to interrupt you while you're on a roll, but we're almost out of time here with our preview, and I did want to remind everyone to join us just about 12 minutes from now at patreon.com/Jerome Corsi and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. I don't know if you've had a chance to view this, Doctor, but along the lines of Andrew McCabe, Michael Moore, editor of True Pundit, and myself went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania over the weekend to try to speak to Mr. McCabe at a Democratic fundraiser that he was allegedly speaking at, but he was he showed up, but he totally avoided us. There was an impressive intelligence and security apparatus surrounding McCabe to keep us from asking him any questions. And Michael and I did some calculations based on the number of people there, the number of tickets they claimed to have sold. And Doctor, it seemed very much like an operation to simply funnel money to Andrew McCabe, which definitely deserves some more investigation. And people who have missed that can also see that on Patreon. There's a ton of great subscriber exclusive content there. So you and I are about to reset, and hopefully we'll see everyone over there at patreon.com/Jerome Corsi, patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth. I'll see you there in just 10 minutes, Doctor.
Thanks, Jason. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Excellent.